Against the Tide, and that's the title of the book by Martha Karua, the NARC Kenya party leader. Launched the book yesterday, a colourful ceremony. So you said it was a colourful, well-organised ceremony, right?
My friend, I have attended book launches. That one took the cup.
This one?
It was well-organised. Martha, I learned something. If I ever write a book, my friends are not coming to talk about me.
Do not bring your books, your friends, to talk about you.
They might give more than you intended to.
Yeah. There were several conversations on that book launch yesterday, and there are some panel discussions. And the first panel discussion had Martha's secondary school headmaster, then had high school classmates,
yes,
the head girl and the prefect, who said things.
Oh, they said, I said, wait, this one.
What a choma.
The only thing then that sort of like mollified the whole situation, they said, you know, some of these activities that people got involved in, Martha never. In fact, Martha is the person we could rely on to go out with and who'd shepherd us back. Now, I don't have that safety net.
So you cannot allow. Martha, good to see you.
Nice to see you all, and thank you for honoring me.
No, thank you for inviting us.
Yes, thank you for inviting us. It was
very
a
good
one.
emceeing.
Oh, that was me, right?
Yeah. It was great.
No, I like the emceeing, especially the part where he said, my co-host, so-and-so is actually here. Yes, could he stand up and wave? I said, yes, it's very good. But the beauty of it was the diversity of people I saw there.
Yeah.
I saw people I haven't heard or seen in a long time from.
Yeah.
I met very, very young people. I met a cross-section of what you could call the Kenyan society. Now that for me was wonderful.
Yeah.
Because from where I was sitting, I got to talk more or less with this same grouping of people that I'm talking about. People would come and sit next to me and talk and want to say this. But you see, that wouldn't have been possible if there had been no book launch.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's true.
It's
That's true.
All of us together.
It did. It did.
A cross-section of people.
It did.
The book Against the Tide is your journey on a less trodden path. That's what you say, right? And it's your memoir where Martha Karua, trailblazing lawyer, human rights activist and politician, takes you through her incredible journey from a small village in Kirinyaga to the highest corridors of power. Known for her unwavering stance on justice, democracy and good governance, she shares her personal and professional struggles, triumphs and the lessons learned along the way. And you say that by sharing my story, I hope it serves as a reminder that while the path is long and often grueling, it is worth every step.
Indeed.
Karibu sana. Siti, welcome her with the day's proverb.
Yes, our proverbs for this week come from the Republic of Burundi. According to the cow, God has a wet nose.
I suppose it's about the rain. Because if he's up there and we are receiving his blessings of rain, he must surely have a wet nose. And that feeds us.
That's a nice way of looking at it.
I mean, I don't know how else to interpret,
It's God's wet nose that actually rains on us. What do you think they mean? What is that proverb then saying to you?
I don't know.
According to the cow.
This one is a bit tough.
This one is tough.
But I want to think that if God has a wet nose, that's why the cow can get its grass. That's why we can get our bounty here on earth. Yeah. He has bounty. Yeah.
Well, that's a nice one.
There's no other way I understand it.
That's a nice one. Teresa Ombito says, writes in caps on our YouTube channel, I am very proud of you, Mheshimiwa.
Oh, I'm humble.
Okay. And that's one thing that, let's just start with this one by just giving you your flowers. The number of people who were there, and remember we said, in fact, I was thinking later, I should have just started that thing of those who are 70 and above, raise your hand. Because there were several in that room.
Oh, yes.
Who are 70 and above.
Yes.
Starting with the keynote speaker, Professor Willie Mutunga, and others, and your teacher. They were there. And then we went into all the way to those who were 10 and below.
Yeah.
And there were 10 and belows in the house.
Yeah.
There were.
Right?
Yes.
And the person who spoke and did a very beautiful poem to welcome you
Was 15 and below.
was 15 and
14,
14,
yes.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so that tells you something about what you've done. Though you may not have become president yet, there's something that you've done that you have basically passed on, and you've created a legacy. That those who are in the room from below 10 to above 70 all know Martha Karua. That's not many people who can say that, right? So that is it. That's your flower.
I'm really honored by the presence of all those, because you may invite and people may not come the way you want.
Yes.
I was truly blessed yesterday.
Yes, indeed. So this book, you say it took you a couple of years to write the book. How many years?
I actually didn't want to reveal, but it had already been revealed, about 9. Because
Why?
it's writing, shelving, beginning, all those things. And starting with a ghost writer who did a splendid job but unable to connect. I thought it's because she was not local. So I got help from locals. I was then able to connect, but still I couldn't hear my voice. So eventually I had to sit and go through chapter by chapter. And like I said, the most strange thing is that during the Azimio demonstrations last year is when I got the inspiration. After tear gas, I would go home, sit down and write.
You had something. You had fire in your, you had smoke
my
in your belly.
Yes. It's just funny because I don't know why, but that's the time. Maybe also it will, we had done some time after the elections. Yeah. Yeah.
You had taken a moment.
Yeah.
It has several parts. It's in 6 parts
Yeah.
and several chapters
Yeah.
where you start from your childhood and early childhood memories,
Yeah.
going into your journey of life professionally and school,
Yeah.
going into joining politics.
Yeah.
I mean, getting into your own life,
Even getting a family.
getting a
and all
family
those. Yes,
against the
yes.
system's tide, your work professionally as an advocate,
Yeah.
the highs and lows of government, now getting into government, the less lonely and less trodden path.
Yeah.
And this is where now you're talking about your quest for highest office and so on, and your continued quest for change. You take us through your entire 67 years
Yes, I do.
of life here in
Yes,
this
I
one.
do.
One of
Yes.
the interesting things was when you invited your former headmaster in your
Mr.
high school,
Gomez,
Mr.
yes.
Gomez,
Yeah.
and he came there. And he was not the only one who was talking about your life in those younger days. You had also recorded a video with your family members, your
Yeah.
siblings and your parents,
Yeah.
who spoke about that. What do you say about the role that your close family has played in your life?
I think my close family members have been really my pillar and still are. They've been extremely supportive, and starting with my parents, patience and support. Were it not for their patience, maybe I would not have finished school, because if you keep getting sent out of school, your parents can get tired and say, you stay at home or do something else. Or maybe after Form 4, there's no need of you going on because you're getting too much trouble. But they exhibited patience, a lesson that I carry with me. And although my children didn't give me much trouble, I was ready, even if they had, because I had been shown by my dad.
That is important to be patient.
Yes, and also look at my teacher, Mr. Gomez. Look at the teachers at Nairobi Girls School. Patience and understanding of a growing up person. And that all those helped me to be who I am today.
Why do you think you were a troublesome child?
I don't think I was troublesome. I was just inquisitive. But we lived in times where being inquisitive amounts to trouble. Being expressive, telling the teacher no, I will not be caned on my back. That was a greater offense than the noise making for which he wanted to cane me. I didn't know then. Now I know it is actually indecent to cane a female pupil on the back. Leave alone that these days, even corporal
Caning at all
punishment is outlawed completely. But
Right.
those days it was accepted. But the Code of Regulations still did not allow girls to be caned on the back. I didn't know that. But I had my teacher, my father telling the teacher that I'm a teacher like you, and this is totally unacceptable. If he had not been supportive, by the way, I had been asked to go and wait outside when they were arguing, but I overheard, and I knew there was a thing called the code, although the understanding of it wasn't much.
But you picked the word.
Yeah, but I really appreciate now, as an adult looking back, the trouble they went to raise me and to make me who I am. But I must tell you that Nairobi Girls was a different ball game from my previous schools. Teachers didn't have much problem with people expressing themselves. We were okay. And the only one single brush I had is that whistling, which the class teacher wanted to take as murder. But my class covered me.
Martha, why were you whistling in class?
You see, the teacher had said something to us, which was outrageous, that if you do not answer her when she calls out your name on the roll call, she can stop you from doing the A-level exams. So the whole class went like, but I was the single person who whistled.
How did you?
So...
Kujapa. Who's that?
So she now forgot the choir of she just picked the whistle. Who whistled? Nobody showed up. So she stormed out in annoyance, saying that she will not teach geography. She was also a geography teacher until the person owns up. And guess what? I was not even taking geography. So immediately she goes out. I tell my classmates, girls, I'm the one who whistled. And immediately they say, you cannot tell her now. She's so mad, you'll end up being suspended. Let the prefects negotiate. They also volunteered to negotiate. And the negotiations took 2 whole weeks before Mrs. Barrier could come down.
Where?
You know? And the school allowed that protracted period. I was so sorry, especially because I was not taking geography. And those taking geography were being punished on account of me. But it was resolved amicably. I apologized to the teacher. And I was delivered by the prefects to her house to apologize after they had negotiated a truce that all I'll be needed to do is to apologize. Yeah.
Did she tell you why she was so livid at you whistling?
No, she didn't. They had sorted out all those issues with the prefect and the headmistress. Because they were saying, look, all those who said, that was their immediate reaction. The whistle is also equivalent to the So if you're not punishing the entire class, why do you single out one person? That was the argument. Discrimination. So we were learning how to argue our cases as early as we could.
You know, you're talking about a period when Jomo Kenyatta was still president.
Yeah.
Now, many people may not understand it, but that government was authoritarian.
Totally.
Yes. Now, that sort of governance cascades down.
So you're correct.
Anybody who is in authority believes they have absolute authority and should not be questioned. Which brings me to the question, who was the headmistress? Because the headmistress was clearly somebody who understood things differently from the geography teacher.
Mrs. Mwaniki, and she's alive. In fact, if she hears this, I'll be coming to visit you soon.
So it appears that she led that school with, she did not interfere when the prefects and the teacher were negotiating.
She was part of the negotiations because the matter escalated.
Of course, it had to go to her office.
You see? So she was part of those negotiations and she guided that process and it came to an amicable settlement. I think giving time also for the teacher to come down. Yeah.
Something else that comes out here in this book is that you are a prolific dancer.
Let me say, dancing is in the genes of Africans, and this African, it is in her genes.
The secondary school principal spoke of how he'd allow the girls in the school to have time to dance.
Yeah.
Non-stop.
Non-stop.
Yes.
And you would be there non-stop dancing.
Yeah.
Your high school mates, Professor Mitula, and they were also speaking about your time in high school at Nairobi School, where you'd still, at Nairobi Girls, where you'd still end up even going out to dance. And even at the university, going out to dance. Dance, you, Martha?
Yeah, but high school, not much going out to dance because you don't go out.
Yes.
You go out to church. But university, we really danced. Danced with it.
You
but
dancing.
we did not also neglect our studies.
You dancing?
Oh, yes.
Nightclub?
Yeah. And also parties.
Where?
Yeah. But imagine, that time we were not going to university young like they were going. We had gone up to Form 4, 2 years of maturing, because A-levels really is like maturing.
Right.
So we were responsible adults,
Yep.
young adults,
By that time, you're already at a certain age where you're like you're saying, you're a responsible young adult.
where you can make rational decisions and take care of yourselves. I feel these days we are taking our children to university, throwing them in the deep end too early. After Form 4, they will just be about 16, 17.
Yeah.
It's too early. For us, we had 2 years of maturing, being able to look after ourselves.
In fact, what you found was we had classmates at the university who were married.
Indeed. Yeah.
Yes, people got at that age. There are young ladies who came to college already married. Some even had children even as they came to college.
And some were having in college.
Yes.
We need to look at how to handle the situation of very young people entering college. And you've seen it stand up to be a fearsome sin, because sometimes we get our young ones having relationships which end up in murder. They're not many, but they're worrying. It was totally unheard of our time. Yeah.
At what point did you decide you want to become a lawyer?
I think
why?
when I was in primary school, I accompanied my dad to court on a traffic matter. I don't know what he had taken me to Karua to do. Then we passed by the court. I don't know what it is that I liked about the attention the magistrate was getting. And magistrates of country are called judge. Kikuyu jaji.
Judges.
So as we left the court, I'm telling my dad I want to be a judge. But not judge the way we know it today. Judge, that magistrate I saw.
You wanted to be the boss of the court.
Yes, so he told me that it's okay. He has no objection. I just have to work very hard at school. That's what I got from his response. Work hard at school. And I did that. And I ended up becoming that judge because I was a magistrate for a while. Yeah.
Was it the same thing that when you were in high school and then into university now, when you've been admitted to university to study law, was it the same drive?
Yeah.
Had you at this point now gotten to understand what law is and who a magistrate is and who a judge is?
And I still wanted a career in the judiciary. I was pursuing the dream to be that judge. And I became a magistrate straight from law school. I stayed a magistrate for 6 years. But when I started having a family, the emoluments were not sufficient for me to effectively contribute to my family. So I decided after my second contract, because I was on contract, I decided 3-year contracts. I decided not to renew, to go and set up a private practice, to be able to look after my family financially. And that's what I did. Yeah.
How hard was it?
It wasn't hard. Remember, at that time, the Law Society records, Kenya had just about slightly over 2,000 advocates, meaning those ones who are taking out practicing certificates. There could have been others, but the active ones were about 2,000. There was need for lawyers, both in government and in private practice. From the day I set up, I never lacked clients. I never lacked a steady stream, and it kept on increasing. Yeah. It's not like today. People are setting up. It's hard. There are many lawyers. Although the population has gone up, it's not as easy. Things were easier for us that time. Yeah.
In this book, you also then talk about something that people don't even talk about and know about your son and your daughter.
Yeah.
And then your grandchildren.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What was that? Because this is something that is so monumental. It actually makes you make a career decision.
Yeah.
Right? Starting a family, getting a family, and bringing up your children. Tell us a bit about that.
I think the joy of motherhood or parenthood makes you forget any other hardship that is associated with this. You just want to keep going to do the best you can for your children. And that's true of everyone, irrespective of their station in life. So I had to look at life differently. My salary was enough for me to dress me up, to accommodate me. It was without much saving. It was the bare minimum, and it was enough. By the way, for those who don't know, when I entered the judiciary as a magistrate, my salary was 3,000 shillings. After taxation, you are left with something like 26 something.
Mm-hmm.
I was sharing a house in Golf Course Estate. We were paying 1,200, and we would share 600 each with a friend of mine who is now a judge. I will not name her. A judge of the High Court. When I say that,
not a judge.
It rules out
Not a judge.
other. She's not a judge, she's a judge of the High Court. And we were sharing this house in Golf Course. She was employed in private practice by an advocate. She was being paid slightly better than me, but we were sharing equally. So now when I get a family, this 2,000 does not become good enough. And because I'm not living in my own house, I'm living in my husband's house, it means I'm not getting house allowance. So the pay even dips a little bit more. So I realized I can't make ends meet, and you want an honest living. So I go out to private practice. And sure, private practice was something else. For bail application, I'm charging 5,000, which is more than my entire month's salary.
Hey.
Although I have expenses like the office, the staff and all that. But you see immediately that shows you there's more life somewhere else. Yeah.
How would that salary of a magistrate compare with other civil servant cadres? So, for example, teachers, police officers.
Civil service pay was bad. But I remember when I told my dad how much I was earning, his response was, "What? After all that education, I'm earning more than you as a teacher." That was his response. You see? His salary plus his house allowance, because he was getting owner-occupied house allowance, which was a phenomenon then. He had more money than me. So he couldn't understand how. Yeah, after all that
He's
education.
taken you through all that.
Yeah.
From university to Kenya School of Law to all this, and
all
then
that.
Yeah.
So civil service pay was very bad. Not like today, when especially the higher levels of civil service are better paid than even sometimes the private sector. It shows there's something we are not quite balancing. Civil servants should be well paid so that they can do their jobs properly, but the pay should be commensurate with the
equivalence in the public service.
Yes, and
private.
Not private sector, but also the standard of living and the wealth of the country, so that we must be able to give good services to the people as well as the better pay. The two should rise together. Quality services, especially the basic services. But when you raise civil servants' pay and state officers' pay, starting with MPs, and you leave out quality services for the people, that's an imbalance. The two have to go together. Yeah, you can't live like kings when everybody else is in misery.
That's true.
Yeah.
We are discussing Against the Tide, the new book by Martha Karua, which is her journey on a less trodden path. It's a memoir looking at her life from childhood into early career into politics, into leadership, into the pursuit of the highest office in the land, and continued pursuit of justice. In the second half of this conversation, we'll talk about now your politics and governance. The book is available in bookstores now, up for sale, and you can buy it. It's Against the Tide, The Journey on a Less Trodden Path. So you've told us what happened. You studied, you went to university, you went to Kenya School of Law, you became a magistrate, as your dream had always been to become the judge that you had seen in Karua, and now you decided, hey, I'm starting a family, this is not enough, I've got to move into private practice, and you were making money, and you were doing well. Why did you decide to join politics?
I think to improve my country, we started by activism within the Law Society. I became a council member of the Law Society, and we are, holding the government to account, and especially on matters of rule of law and human rights. And I realized that, just like I had in the Law Society activism, realized that it's not enough to complain about what is not being done. It is also important to enter there and do what you think should be done. So I was seeking to be a part of the solution. And I went to Parliament and continued to practice law. It is my legal practice that supported my politics. Just like being a magistrate or judge was a poorly paid job, when I went to Parliament December of 1992, my total salary was 5,000 plus allowances.
5,000 what?
20,000.
20,000 was the salary of an MP?
The actual basic salary was 5,000. The rest were allowances, totaling now to 20,000.
This is 30 years ago.
Yes, so it is my legal practice that supported my politics. I could attend 2 harambes in a month, giving 20,000 in each, which is double my pay. That 20,000 they were paying me was not barely enough for the house I was living in, not to mention fueling my vehicle, educating my children, maintaining me. So it is my legal practice that anchored my politics until the pay got better. And the pay really got what you'd call better 10 years later, when Kibaki came in and when the report by the Oloaringo Committee was actualized, and pay for parliament was improved and a parliamentary service commission instituted. That is not to say that we stayed on 5,000 for the 10 years. There were improvements, and by the end of the 10th year, the salary had gone up to about 350,000. Yeah.
Something that I find interesting.
Yeah.
When you first stood, who were you standing against?
I was standing against Geoffrey Kareithi, the late Geoffrey Kareithi, my father, and he was a former head of the civil service. And we come from the same Kemunye village. So I'd seen him as I grew up. I was friends with his youngest daughter. We were in primary together before they moved over to Nairobi. Yeah.
So you were taking on a former head of the public service.
Yes.
What gave you the gumption? What gave you the courage to feel that you could actually take on? Because this was not a small person.
Listen, I was already on the national stage as a leader within the legal profession. We were already taking on the powers that be on matters of rule of law, administration of justice. I was already a household name in Kenya because of the work I was doing. I felt equal to the task. It never occurred to me that I was biting more than I could chew. And I went to campaign with all the confidence and bravery of a youth.
How many times did the people of Gishugu elect you?
4 consecutive times. And I believe had I gone for a parliamentary seat instead of the presidency in 2012, or for any local seat, I would still have been elected. But the presidency now, they were saying that they have beaten more than I can chew.
Why?
Ask the people. I think the social growth of a nation and all that, the perception, I do not think that people now see it that way. They've tried all they can, and they've seen what is happening. So I'll give it a last shot.
Would you say that your being a woman played a part in the electorate not seeing you fit for that particular seat?
I think so. I think if I had been a man performing the way I was performing for them in Geshogo, in Parliament and nationally for Kenya, I think without saying, I would have gone places. Yeah, so there's a bit of that. But even that is for me and the next woman to shatter the glass ceiling. We've done it before, we'll do it again. Yeah.
There are those who've argued, Martha, that one of the things that probably also got in the way, that I'm going to use a term, this is my term.
Yeah.
You are unbending. That you take a position and you are reluctant to move from that position.
Indeed, on matters of principle, I am on unbending, on following the rule of law, on upholding human rights. I am unbending on fighting corruption, issues of governance. On other matters, we can sit and discuss.
In fact, those who say what I've just said, they have said, also argue that on that last note is where there's a problem, because
fighting corruption.
Yes. Because it is expected, they say, that political leadership ought to have the capacity to turn a certain blind eye to certain matters of corruption.
I have heard that you are told in quotes that business people are complaining about your stand. But I just want to put this to the nation of Kenya, to fellow citizens. We can't have our cake and eat it. We want an organized country. We've got to follow the rules we have agreed upon. And the rules of this club called Kenya are the laws of Kenya. You start by bending a little. You'll end up with the impunity that is in Kenya today. Let the law apply to everyone without fear or favor. What is holding a nation like America together? And you can see they're not also in a good place, but they have systems that work. Trump was in court. He's a convict. He's been elected, but I am seeing him presenting slightly differently than before. He knows there are consequences, and everybody does. You have seen in South Africa, Zuma, who was president, being arraigned. Following rules is very important. Those countries I have named are not perfect. But when you have a system that works, it helps to remind people that there are beacons beyond which you cannot go. Your rights end where my rights begin and where the rights of the society begins. So we need to follow the rule of law. I'm stickler for the rule of law. And when I come again to you for votes, I'll be reminding you, we need to organize ourselves, to organize this beautiful and blessed country God gave us. We have enough to even pay our debts. We have enough to provide basic services as ordered by the Constitution to everybody. Yeah. But we have to manage it and follow the rules we agree on, the laws of Kenya.
Let's get into the NARC administration, right?
Yeah.
So Kibaki comes in and there's this whole euphoria and renewed hope in the entire country. And when he names his cabinet, you are among those that he names in his cabinet. How was that, the first cabinet? Let's talk about between 2003 and 2005. How was that?
It was a pleasure and privilege to work in that cabinet. It was collegial. Cabinet meetings were open. You could offer your view. We discussed freely and agreed on matters. And President Kibaki left us to apply our best selves in the jobs he gave us. I was free to drive the reforms in the Ministry of Water, and I got his support in that. And so were other ministers. It was such a joy. When I left government, when I resigned on principle in 2008, my ministry, my work was being interfered with. there were roadblocks. And I felt that I had been given a djembe in the farm and my hands had been tied behind my back.
And
I left. Yes.
So in those years,
yeah.
there was, a lot of camaraderie in cabinet in terms of everybody working together.
Yeah.
But at the same time, bombers was happening.
Bombers became poison, not just for the country, but for cabinet. Because by the time we go to the referendum in 2005, the lines are drawn. There is a Kibaki faction and a Raila Odinga faction, which ended up being the No team, and the Kibaki team, the Yes team. So again, that now became, those difficulties came to cabinet, but were not that noticeable. And when the referendum failed, Kibaki sacked the entire government and returned those of us who were on his side and dropped completely Raila Odinga and his team. Yeah.
Looking back at the politics of that time, and the decisions that were made, do you think things should have been done differently?
Yeah, I obviously think that we should have done better. We ought not to have let the disagreements get to where they were. And even when the referendum failed, perhaps we still should have sought to sit with our colleagues who are on the No team. Perhaps we should have persuaded the president that we sit with our colleagues in the No team. Remember, this is a government we had looked for together. We should have thought to bridge those differences in order to move the nation forward. The fact that we did not do that is a collective mistake we must carry. And that poison is what led to that toxic environment, to the 2007 post-election violence, and the campaigns from 2005 December, after the failing of the referendum and the new cabinet, to 2007. It was 2 years of building upon a toxic environment and making it more toxic. We tried. President Kibaki, on my advice, formed a team of eminent persons to go around the country asking what we should do and making recommendations. They did, but the Odinga group boycotted it completely. That obviously undermined its legitimacy. We were not able to implement, even when I tried as Minister of Justice, to bring together a multi-sectoral group to complete the constitutional review, because constitutional review was flagged as one of the major issues. Again boycotted by the Orange Democratic Movement, as it then was. We were not able to go far. And also some people inside my side, inside government, who wanted it scuttled. It failed. So we went to the elections in 2007, knowing we have a great problem, but not as government being able to do much to solve it. We also went and prepared security-wise, because the then Minister for Internal Security, the late John Michuki, had fallen out with the director of CID. They were nil by mouth. I did not know until after the post-election violence.
Really?
How do you coordinate security when there is animosity within the security sector and people not talking to one another? You see?
What had led to this?
Sorry?
What had led to that?
Only them can, whatever, but I think the fallout came from the Mamluki issue. Yeah.
There are those who say that after the 2005 referendum and then the reconstitution of government, now people started digging in. There are those who were digging in from outside, and now they were forming the ODM and preparing for the election. And there are those who were left in Kibaki's side who were also digging in, and they were hardliners in Kibaki's side. Some people say that you're one of the hardliners. Is it true?
I think the term hardliners had not come by then, and therefore it could not be referring to that period. The term hardliners came when we were negotiating. And yes, I was seen as one of the hardliners. Remember, I led the Kibaki team. and nobody is going to call Kibaki the hardliner.
You are the chief
So
agent.
you take the bullet on behalf of your chief. Even the Western envoys, when talking of hardliners, they were talking of me and the others in the negotiating team, particularly me. But was I the principal in government? I was negotiating on behalf of a principal aside. So you go on instructions. But I learned diplomacy is also deception. Even when you know a truth, you put it in the way you want. So the sugar coating, because Kibaki will not be called a hardliner, Martha Karua will be the hardliner. But I'm not negotiating for my government. I'm negotiating for somebody else to whom I report and who must sign what I negotiate.
Martha.
Yeah.
Are you saying that you were purely just acting on instructions here?
Yes. By the way, I used to personally report to him every morning before going to the talks, and sometimes I would go with my entire team. And one issue which was making us be called hardliners is the issue of refusing to anchor the agreement in the Constitution. He had said no way. He wanted to accommodate Raila and his group in government, but he wanted to be able to appoint and fire, just like before. But Raila and his group, having been fired in 2005, were not going to take it that way. They wanted it in the Constitution, and they won. It ended up being in the Constitution, but we did not agree to it because our instructions were not to agree. So when Kofi Annan realized that he'll not get a yes from us, we agreed on everything else, and he said the remaining issue is for the principals. So he went, sat with Kibaki, Raila, and in the presence of Jakaya Kikwete of Tanzania. And lo and behold, they agreed.
That's when he escalated the matters to the principals. But
that one issue.
When you were taking instructions from your president, because you've said before that this is a president who would listen, who would allow people to actually come and even do something. What were you advising him on this particular matter of anchoring the coalition, the agreement in the Constitution?
We advised him properly. We agreed to the coalition government. And I think when I look back on it, Kibaki must have, in the back of his mind, realized that he had to accommodate Raila and his group in government. Why? We had a hung parliament, half-half. It becomes very difficult to administer. With his years of experience, he had foreseen he will accommodate them. Remember, he had appointed only half cabinet. I asked him why he's not completing the appointments. Akaniambia, wewe ngoja, you know?
So he knew where this would lead.
In hindsight, he knew. So he gave us leeway, even when we made suggestions on how the coalition government would work. I helped him to craft what role the Prime Minister would play. And of course, we went and strengthened this with the group. Orengo advising Raila on the other side. Everything else we were able to agree, to advise and agree. But he didn't want the matter anchored in the Constitution. And he later personally agreed to it. And those who want to research, you can research. There's a time Kofi Annan had announced that there will be a coalition government. And he announced before we had agreed. I issued a statement saying we have not discussed it on the instructions of Kibaki. But Kibaki was so livid on the matter that even after I issued a statement, he himself issued his own statement from State House on the issue. So that was a no-go zone for him. How they got him to agree on a face-to-face meeting, only him could have told. And
maybe that's what he wanted. Maybe he wanted this one. This is a matter that only I can decide, and you must come to me.
Even that is okay. He was able to agree. He was the principal. Okay. It was his government.
But Martha, aside from just the advice, I know we're running out of time. Kibaki must have other people he was talking to, people he listened to. These leaders tend to. Were they in agreement with what he was suggesting? Or
those people would not even have been in agreement of anchoring it in the Constitution or even having a coalition government.
In the first place.
In the first place. You see? But Kibaki was an agreeable person.
Yes.
Yeah. And I am glad that he decided to tackle the last and main issue himself. Because then you get everybody unfairly telling you are the one who seeded government.
Yeah.
Because every evening there are members who would tell us that we are giving in too much. Because statements used to be issued on how much we have agreed. But all the time, Kibaki was in the know and giving us a go-ahead.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.